Hey, you guys, this is Rashawn Ellis. I'm checking in with you today for news, views, and conversations. Just wanted to give my commentary on the interview with Kamala Harris with Bret Baier for Fox News. It was not a good look. I did not like it one bit. I actually had a couple other pointers I want to point out with some other ladies that are also in politics, very successful. They are definitely a household name. And I want to mention the same tactic that I saw that Bret Baier used with Kamala Harris. I feel like I've seen that same tactic done with these other two ladies that I will mention a little bit later. After I get through giving you my pointers on what we saw with the Kamala Harris interview. It's like the same tactic being done over and over again. And I guess it's probably been done more than what I even, remember or recognize. I'm sure if I went back down in history and investigated more, I probably would find more. But these ladies happen to be the ladies of this time, of this day and age of what's going on in politics. So I just wanted to highlight all of what we're seeing play out in the news. I mean, it just cannot go, um, not spoken on. It has to be, brought to the light. So I just didn't like it all what we saw Wednesday night, I believe it was, for the interview with Fox News with Bret Baier, Kamala Harris. It just kind of felt like, okay, so was he really asking her questions that he wanted to get answers to, or was he trying to show that he had the upper hand? This was more like a debate. It was not an interview. It's like he didn't give her a chance to answer any of the questions, down to the part where he even played the clip that did not show in its entirety of Donald Trump actually saying that he would use the United States military against his own people. They cut the clip to paint him in a different light, to keep from showing, what he really said, what he really, mentioned. I mean, we all have saw it. I've seen it a trillion times on CNN, heard every word about him, wanting to use the military against his own people, locking people up, anyone that's, doing a peaceful protest, anyone that doesn't agree with him, the enemy within, which of course is the people themselves, us, of course, if we don't agree with him, um, he would pretty much use force, significant force with the United States military. So he cut that clip to tweak it to paint Trump in a better light, which a lot of people don't see him in a better light because whatever he says, he feels. And so I just love the way how Kamala Harris, how she handled herself. She walked it all the way back. She let him know that clip that you just showed, you didn't play the entire clip in its entirety. We all have heard how he really feels. He's basically saying he wants to use the military against the people to, get them in check, to pretty much have them do what he wants done. So I just thought it was really great how she, had a backbone. She stood up. She let him know, I see what you just did. She called him out pretty much. The whole world saw it. I mean, even down to mentioning, that he is a threat to the democracy. He is unstable and he is definitely not fit to lead. And I just find it so interesting how they are trying to push the agenda of him leading this country, no matter what he does, no matter what he says, this is their person that they choose to try to have lead the free world, which we already know it will be a disaster. The first presidency was a disaster, and this would definitely be a disaster, especially for our children, our grandchildren, and our great great grandchildren. So this is definitely not a good move at all. Um, it just felt like he was talking at her as if she was being reprimanded. She was being overtalked, not given an opportunity to speak, to not even explain her stance on any issues that were being discussed. He kept cutting her off into conversation. He wouldn't let her get a word in as to what she was trying to, get across. Like I said before, it's just like he was trying to reprimand her. It was almost as if he was trying to chastise a Black woman, put her in her place. That's how it made me feel. Um, and that's what we're looking at with this whole election as they're running for president, especially in Kamala's case. It's like they want her to explain herself, explain the policies, explain the laws, explain what laws they support. Like she's being drilled on what the laws are, what policies, what changes would she make. And the whole time they're giving Trump a pass. He's being a goof off. entertaining people, dancing, having a good time. He's not being called on anything as far as like what laws, he would, want to make changes to or bring about change, what policies he could add to bring about change. Nothing of any kind of significance to help the American people. But as a Black woman, as an African American Black woman, she's being called to the altar on what will you do? What about this? What about that? And he's over here just being a total goof off. I mean, it's very, very true that we're looking at two different systems here. She's being judged because she's a woman and a woman of color. And because he has the white privilege card, he gets to do whatever he wants. He doesn't get called into question for anything, but because of who she is, she's being questioned on every single thing. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I want to mention two other ladies that we saw the same thing happen with in politics, I would say. I want to mention our former mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, when she was dealing with Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, which is still the governor of Georgia, during COVID. So they had a dispute going back and forth about the mask mandate. He was saying, that people don't have to wear a mask. She was saying, yes, to protect everyone so no one gets the COVID or whatever. He tried to sue her. The whole lawsuit was a retaliation against her, and I believe it was against her and the city of Atlanta because he wanted to enforce his rule. I want to read a little bit of what I pulled from CNN. I always like to state my sources so you guys can go back and look for yourselves to see, what's going on around us now so you can see what we're talking about. And this was July 2020 when everything was really getting revved up with COVID. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms believes personal retaliation is behind Georgia Governor Brian Kemp's lawsuit challenging her decision to require a mask in her city in response to the coronavirus pandemic. She stated that she did believe it was personal retaliation and he sued her personally. He did not, so correction, I said that he sued the city of Atlanta. No, he did not sue the city of Atlanta. He filed suit against herself and the city council personally. The ongoing feud between Bottoms, a Democrat, and Kemp, a Republican, reached new heights when Kemp challenged her mask requirement, saying it violates his emergency order prohibiting local action from being more prohibitive than the state's requirements. So in that moment, he really went all out. It could have stopped there, but it didn't. And the moment that I saw what was happening, I was like, okay, this feels like he's trying to show her who's boss. He's white. She's a Black woman. Who does she think she is? Let me put her in her place. Not only am I going to put her in her place, I'm going to file suit against her and the city council. So right there, that was over the top. So I got triggered. I guess by seeing, what Kamala was going through in her interview the other day. And I'm like, okay, that reminds me of that situation with Keisha Lance Bottoms. Okay, let's go to Ketanji Brown Jackson. When she was going for the Supreme Court justice, when she had her interview for the confirmation hearings, it was terrible. And honestly, I think hers was probably more terrible than what we saw with Kamala Harris and Keisha Lance Bottoms. I mean, they drilled her. She was dealing with Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, and she was dealing with Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. It was terrible. Again, same situation, talking at her, not giving her a chance to speak, not giving her a chance to, give her stance on issues or laws or whatever she's made decisions about before. It's like she was being checked the entire time of the confirmation hearings. And so, again, that's what we saw in that case. That's what we saw in the Kamala Harris interview debate. That's what we saw with Keisha Lance Bottoms. It appears that whenever they're dealing with any political men that are Republican and that are also white, it's like a reprimanding going on. Like this is slavery, and you're talking down to them as if she has to do what you say. Number one, because you're a man, and because of the color of your skin, they should bow down. That's what I took from it. I mean, other people may beg to differ. I don't. And I really think it's very ridiculous. It is very appalling to see it, especially in this day and time. But as we continue to watch everything up until the election, this is what I do, really thank God for. I thank God for the good white people. I thank God for the ones that, see the fight, see the struggle, and they don't see us as a color. They see us as their equal. They see us as a human being, not trying to look down upon us, wanting to overtalk us, not let us to, be able to have a say and be able to express ourselves and, make our points. So we got to thank God for the good ones that are standing right alongside us in the fight of what we're fighting for, which is our freedoms, to be able to be ourselves, to be who we are, and to help one another in everything that's going on. Because as we can see, some of our Black folks are not coming to the cookout either, because they over there acting crazy with the Trump people. And the rest of them, that's just on a whole nother situation here. But I just wanted to highlight those views of, what I'm seeing, what we're watching. I have a couple of clips. I got to see which one I'm going to add on to this one for you guys to see, to just check out, a lot of the commentary. It's either probably going to be from Midas Touch and this other guy that I just started checking out the other day. He gets a lot of great commentary. His show is called The Warning. So it's going to be either one of those or maybe both, because I get so much out of the commentary that other, podcasters like myself are out here getting to the news, digging deep, getting to the information, and coming back, sharing with you guys as we compare certain situations to others and bringing it together to try to make it make sense. But just in those three cases, that's what I feel like I've been seeing here. Her interview, Kamala Harris, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Keisha Lance Bottoms. Beautiful African American Black women that are, in politics and they have something to say. It's like they're being disrespected. And it needs to change, because guess what? There's going to be more of us at these Black jobs that they think that we should not have. We will be filling them. So just wanted to bring that, commentary to you guys today. Check out the clips that I have to show you based off of, other podcasters that can see what's going on here, just like I'm seeing what's going on here. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will definitely see you guys in the next video.
Yesterday, the Vice President of the United States went into Fox News and sat down with Bret Baier. Let's talk about Bret Baier. He is a preposterous figure. He's somebody who has gotten very, very rich enough to buy a $30 million house very close to Donald Trump's, where obviously he, Trump, and Matt Gaetz all go get the same Botox doctor to inject things into their faces. Look at him. This is an important point. Bret Baier doesn't look like most men in America. He's a man who makes tens of millions of dollars a year lying and gaslighting the American people. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We'll show you how it's done. But before we get there, study his face. Study Matt Gaetz's face. Study Trump's. Look at the makeup. Look at the frozen faces. Look at the deformities that these men have brought on themselves by injecting things into their face. It's just not a look that's shared by common people. Now, Bret Baier has contempt for most Americans. When it became clear in 2020 that Joe Biden had been elected president, Bret Baier did not want to tell the Fox News audience because he knew they would go nuts. I want you to think about that. Can you imagine Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, David Muir, Lester Holt, Brian Williams, Nora O'Donnell, any of these people being afraid of the audience to report the news? It is the most astonishing facet of the entire 2020 election. The Fox News anchor, who has been celebrated by the media in Washington as the straight news, credible person on Fox, was afraid to deliver the election results. He is every bit the coward that Lindsey Graham is, that Mitch McConnell is. He is one of the people who failed to stand up for you. Now, what happened on Fox last night was glorious. In short, if you didn't see it, Kamala Harris went in there, cut his nuts off, and fed them to him. Let's watch the most important part of the interview when Bret Baier attempts to gaslight the vice president, gaslight the country about what it is that Donald Trump says and doesn't say out on the campaign trail. Here's the exchange.
He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
Before I show you the vice president's answer, let's orient ourselves to what it is that Donald Trump says out there on the campaign trail day after day as he threatens to jail his opponents, as he threatens retribution, as he threatens to deploy the military against the American people over and over and over and over and over again for 10 years. Donald Trump has threatened the American people with violence, with chaos, with mayhem, unless he gets to take power. This is an important moment. This is a moment where the truth was told. Let's watch the vice president's response.
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you...
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
What Fox News is an industrial-grade lie machine that has profoundly disoriented scores of tens of millions of Americans' ability to tell the truth, to appreciate the truth, to be able to tell the difference between a fantasy and real life, to be able to tell the difference between one of Trump's delusions and reality. Fox News has made this country go crazy because it has programmed and brainwashed the country for the last 20 years with abject nonsense, day in, day out. But last night, Kamala Harris stood tall. She faced down the nonsense. She took command, and she showed that she can handle these guys. And that was a very, very important thing for the American people to see. There can be no sense that Kamala Harris is afraid of any of these people, of any of these places. She should go into the lion's den and do what she did last night and do it fearlessly, day in, day out, until the end of the campaign. Kamala Harris is running for the office of President of the United States, and if she gets it, she'll be the first woman in history to occupy it. There is a truism in American elections. Never, ever, ever has the candidate perceived as the weaker of the two on the ballot ever won, ever. This election will be no different. Donald Trump has created a mirage. He is the man behind the curtain, our Wizard of Oz. He's weak. He's corrupt. He's decaying. Donald Trump is incoherent, completely nuts, unhinged, irrational, and a pathological liar. He reeks of weakness. Kamala Harris has to make the point. She has to show fearlessness. She has to engage him hour after hour after hour. When she punches him, it's time to punch him again. There is nothing that she can say about this despicable man that is too tough, that is too harsh, that is too direct. This moment calls for truth-telling. And the truth is, Donald Trump has been treated like a prop by most of the Democratic Party, a get-out-the-vote tool, as opposed to the dire threat he is to the survival of the American Republic, which soon will turn 250 years old. We have reached an important inflection point, not just in this moment of time, but in the history of the country. Donald Trump is one of three people, only three, who have ever been nominated by a political party to be president 3 times. This is his third election at the end of a decade where he has dominated American culture like no person has in the history of American politics. Donald Trump has a proposition. He wants to be the king, or maybe an emperor, or a dictator. It doesn't matter what you call it. He wants to take power from us, give it to himself, give it to his family, and then he wants to have the license to take as much as he can get his hands on, as much as he can carry, as much as he can loot. Why? Because he's in charge. And if you're a king, you're above the law. That's why Trump talks about Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin with such admiration. He's jealous of them. They don't have restraint. He wants to be able to kill like they can. He wants to be able to imprison like they can. He doesn't understand the beauty, the brilliance, the majesty of the American system of government, the American way of life, the civilization that we were handed by our fathers and our mothers and our grandparents to make better for our children. If the American people place America's most despicable person into the White House, if we choose a fascist to sit in the seat that Abraham Lincoln once occupied, catastrophe will be close at hand. Have no illusions about that. Yesterday, the American people got to see the abject dishonesty and preposterousness of Bret Baier, of the whole premise of Fox News. And Kamala Harris called it out. Good for her. Last night on Jimmy Kimmel, there was a brilliant ad, and it speaks volumes to what's at stake and the question at hand for millions of American men. No strong man, no real man, looks at Donald Trump and sees strength. What they should see is a pathetic figure. What they should see is a liar, a man without dignity, a man without honor, the worst president in American history. And this ad perfectly sums it up in the plain English that the American people speak.
This November, let's stop kidding ourselves. Donald Trump is afraid of rain, of dogs, of windmills, Merle Street, and being laughed at.
Isn't it past your jail time?
Mostly, he's terrified that real red-blooded American men will find out that he's a weak, tubby toddler.
Mommy, take me home. Mommy, I want to go home.
What's wrong, tough guy? Did someone grab you by the Why, you bitch.
And the simple truth is this. If we have as president, our country is a lot less safe. Because in that office, we need a strong person. We need a good person. We need a decent person. We need a president in the Oval Office, not a buffoon. And certainly not a, This is the warning.